Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All Things Middle-earth here with a video looking at some things you should definitely be doing before the new season starts. With the new Season 3 rapidly approaching, it's definitely good to take a minute and do a little bit of preparation so you can have a really good season once it does start. All this stuff will apply no matter if you're in Season 1 going to Season 2 or 2 to 3. And really, unless they majorly change things in the game, it's going to apply for any future seasons. So regardless of where you're at, this will hopefully be good information that you can make sure you're set up to do these things well. I did already cover this topic one time with 5 different things, so that'll be linked up in the top right if you want to check those out as well and make sure you're doing those things. But number one on today's list is to choose what commanders you're going to use ahead of time based on what faction you're going to be playing as. Now, it's kind of a mouthful there, but what I mean is once you've decided beforehand what faction you're going to be playing as, which in my last video we talked about how it's important to coordinate with the groups you're playing with to figure out, make sure you got a good active group you're going with. But let's say you're going to be going as Erebor. It's just good to look through the commander list, look at the commanders you have, and decide what commanders you want to start off with. That way you're not playing with too wide a variety of commanders. But if you're going to be playing as Erebor, for example, you get the Iron Warrior. So you could look through your commanders through that lens and say, okay, I'm going to have the Iron Warriors. What commanders are going to really benefit from using them? And then maybe someone like Dwalin or Dwarven commanders that are going to have different abilities or gear that's really going to help them, and the troop types like that could be something that you want to use. But again, you could use example with anybody. If you're going to be playing as Rohan, maybe looking at some of the cavalry commanders and so on and so forth. So just doing a little bit of preparation after you've picked that faction you think you want to play as, looking at what commanders you want to use. And you could also do this kind of in the opposite order, where you look through what commanders you want to play as, or what the best commanders you have are, depending on how you like to play, and say, okay, I really want to use Boromir, and honestly, he's got builds with a couple different tier 4s that are good for him. So you can look through and see which factions might get the most benefit for a commander you want to use. So that's number one on the list. Number two on the list is something I wish I had put more time into, like more than anything this season. I think I wish I had done this, and that is practicing counters that you are less familiar with. So this is going to just give you a good, better understanding of the game as you move forward into Season 3 or whatever season you're going into. But basically, depending on your situation in your server, for a lot of players, it gets a lot more quiet towards the end of the season. Now, if you're going towards down to the last day, like there are a few groups still in our server, which is kind of crazy to me that the ring has not been taken. I don't know what deals they have worked out here, but they may have a little bit more going on. But especially if you're playing like I am up here in Linden or Angmar or Arnor or Rohan or Gondor or whatever, Isengard. You're probably not as busy because the PvP slowdown. You got smacked into your place, which is exactly what happened to me. I've got tiles way down. But if throughout the entire season you are mock battling your commanders, you're doing different things to level them up, then at the end of the season you're going to have a lot more commanders. So, again, I've been pretty guilty this season of not getting all my commanders up to level 50. So for me, for example, I want to use my Gandalf the Grey to practice countering some Witch Kings. But my Gandalf's a 36. I've not used him a lot this season. And so had I, even when the season was slow, worked on getting some of those commanders all the way up to 50 or at least like mid 40s, I could have now had a better opportunity to test some of those things out and be better prepared for the next season starting. But now I'm kind of waiting. The days are ticking away. I got about a week left. My Gandalf just finished some mock battling. He's level 39, so he's got a ways to go. So even if you get slow in your server, just go through your list of commanders and maybe pick some commanders that you're considering using and work with them and test them out and see if there's any that really stand out to you. Again, looking up different things, but what good counters are. For me, we're working on a video right now on Witch King counters. So we're looking at commanders like Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White and several others. And so again, looking at stuff like that and seeing which commanders you want to use or which ones you enjoy using the most based on where you're going is going to set you up in a better spot. So I definitely wish that I had spent more time in the quiet part of the season leveling at commanders so I can do some more testing with them. Number 3 is simple, but it just may not be something you're aware of depending on if you're going from Season 1 to Season 2. As you can see here, the first time purchase, you get double gems the first time you purchase stuff here. So the third tip is to not spend any money if you've already used your first time bonuses until the new season starts. Now, I don't want you to take this like as gospel truth, but Season 1 to Season 2, these bonuses reset. So we have no reason to think they wouldn't for Season 3. I feel like that's something they should put out if they don't do that. So again, if you're a casual spender, you're going to spend even $20 and that's kind of all you'd spend in a season. wait for your new season to start. You'll get double that, when you buy them for the first time. So again, I've used a lot of my first time purchases. So even if I was thinking, I kind of, I got $50, whatever, I want to spend it here. If I wait till the new season, I'll double that. So you get a lot more, especially if you're kind of that, very light to casual spender. It's definitely beneficial for you to wait until the new season starts and these bonuses refresh. The next one is a little bit interesting and it a little bit cheesy, but the next one is to get uprooted if you can. So this is probably only if you're in a situation. I mean, you could work this out with other players kind of regardless, but as you can see, this was not planned, by the way, either. I just got lucky here, or that's a optimistic way to look at it. But when you get uprooted, you get a pack in the store for $5 that allows you to buy 3 stamina potions that carry over to the next season. So I went ahead and did that. I bought this pack. So now when the new season starts, you can only use these, on one commander every 24 hours. But still, early game, this is 6 hits with 3 different commanders that I'm working on. That could be a huge difference for me to take a few extra tiles and keep going on that. So I'm not 100% sure if these stack. So if anybody has bought multiple of these, let me know if they stack higher than 3, because I don't want to say they do for sure. I don't have any reason to think they wouldn't, but I was only uprooted that one time and got them. So if you do know for sure, let us know down in the comments. Maybe you've been stacking these all season and you've got, again, you can only use 1 a day per commander. So beyond like 6, which is probably the amount of commanders you should use, even that's probably a lot early game. It won't be that great for you. But again, you stack these up if you wanted to. So that is that one on the list. The next one is sort of in line with a little bit of diplomacy, but that is just to figure out where other groups are going in your server. Now, obviously, you can do this with your own faction to figure out where your team is going and see, maybe you're all going to go play as a different faction. Maybe, I was playing as Linden. I know a group's going to Erebor, so maybe I'll go there and play with them. But it's once you get really, really close to the new season starting, this would be in the last couple days, you will find out what servers you're getting merged with. Now, it probably won't be a lot of servers as we move forward because we're getting bigger and bigger groups together. It will be very beneficial for you to try and at least contact or get a hold of, or get in Discord, or maybe have your faction leaders do this. But figuring out what groups you're being merged with and where they're going, so you can make sure to find the best spot for yourself. Now, I'm not just saying go with the biggest group and pick that. You can do that if you want to. But maybe you kind of get a list going and you figure out, hey, I figured out where everyone's going, and Isengard is going to be very empty. So maybe Isengard's a faction you stay away from in the next season, so you're not one of the only people in it. Or, again, Isengard or Arnor, some of those are a little bit less popular anyway. But you never know. You might have a big group playing there one season as we move on. But maybe you just find out a faction is going to be more or less active than you want to be a part of. Maybe you want to play in a less active faction like Isengard, so you can have all the tiles to yourself in that area. Obviously, when PvP comes, you might be in trouble, but maybe you just like farming early game and you want to get all the tiles to yourself. But just getting a little information can at least help you to make a more informed decision, so you don't start the new season and just feel like, man, there's nobody or there's too many people with me. Again, this might change once we figure out if there are going to be new factions we're getting, which might shake things up entirely. But just trying to get information before the start is going to be beneficial for you starting out in your next season. And lastly, this one is also kind of in the cheese category. And as with these kind of cheesy suggestions, if you will, I will just say kind of take them with a grain of salt, because these are currently in-game mechanics, but they could change. And so I don't want you to bank everything on this. But from what I understand, if you play Heart of a Hero the last weekend before your server switches over, and do not open the chests that you get in your inventory, the chests that you open to give you gold, those chests carry over to the next season. That was the case season 1 to season 2. Again, I'd expect it to be, but it's a little cheesy, so I could see them addressing that. So for me, I have nothing to lose because I'm not doing a whole lot. So for a lot of people, if your season's slower, if I can go through during this weekend coming up in 3 or 4 days here and play Heart of a Hero when it comes up and get as many chests as possible, then when the new season starts, I'll have these chests here in my inventory. I don't have them right now, but I would have them in my inventory. I can open them up and start with a lot of gold. And now, this isn't really going to help you with anything other than early game PvE, but it's just a nice thing to get all your troop upgrades going right away. Obviously, once you do get into the PvP stages, or depending on how early you start that, you could have a little advantage. But again, usually you don't go crazy with the PvP right away, like out of the first couple of days. So again, it's just going to give you a little advantage. If you're in an area with hireable units, just having a lot of gold right away could be helpful. And it's just going to help you to have a pretty huge leg up. But again, they could change that at any time. They could change the stamina potions anytime. So just, again, you got to kind of risk it. $5 was worth it to me to try and take 3 over. they could take those away and say, hey, we don't want people taking those over, which I get. I don't think it's game breaking, but I feel like they sometimes want to slow the pace a little bit. So again, those have been some tips for you for starting and moving into a new season, whether it be season 3 or season 10. I think a lot of these are still going to be applicable. A lot of them just go with getting information and communicating with people, which I feel like is not really the game. So I could see some people, if that's not your thing, I get it. But just learning a little bit of information about your faction, where they're growing, and maybe what other groups you're going to be with could really help set up you to have a much better season than being uninformed and kind of just making a blind guess. Maybe you get lucky and it goes well, but you could sit yourself in a pretty bad faction or one that you just don't have a good time in. So a little bit of prep can go a long ways. But that's going to do it for me in this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.